Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNradio.com.
Who in the world ever would have expected that we would be able to get so much legitimately compelling content in a downtime of year out of DeAndre Jordan? Seriously. Look, I'm the one that's got to come out here at 9 o'clock at night to talk to y'all, right? I try to be honest and transparent with you about the job that I have. You know, there are much worse ways to make a living, certainly. I'm not in here mining coal. But, man, making up stuff to talk about for America to listen to isn't always that easy. Boom. There comes DeAndre Jordan. Changed his mind, and everything flipped up. Like, he is the center of NBA attention. Do you realize that LeBron James, after talking that noise about how he wasn't going to sign his deal until Tristan Thompson got his. Have you heard anything about Tristan Thompson signing a deal? No, you haven't, because Tristan Thompson hasn't signed a deal. Have you heard anybody talking about LeBron James signing a deal? You may not have. And you know why? Because we're so busy talking about DeAndre Jordan. When the hell have we ever been too busy to talk about LeBron because we were so busy with somebody like DeAndre Jordan? Yeah, okay. So that's where we are, right? Now, here's the part of the program that we have now reached with DeAndre Jordan, okay? We've now reached the part of the program where people try to wield their morality. All right, and this is what I mean. So DeAndre Jordan apparently never contacted Mark Cuban after deciding to change his mind. DeAndre Jordan apparently was not returning any of Mark Cuban's correspondence. We know these things in large part because Mark Cuban decided to tell us. Anyway, DeAndre Jordan did not say anything to Mark Cuban. So you got all the people out here, DeAndre need to be a man, he need to call up Mark Cuban. By the way, I don't think those people are wrong, but I'll get back to them in a second and I'll explain why it is that I am talking about those people while using that voice. Man, you need to man up and go call Mark Cuban and answer to him. Anyway, so DeAndre Jordan has not done that. For whatever reason, he decided that he did not need to speak to Mark Cuban. I have no idea why. Then Chandler Parsons did an interview with Tim McMahon of ESPN Dallas, and man, Chandler Parsons went off. Chandler Parsons said that DeAndre Jordan was scared to be a franchise player. That's right. He says, this is something I've never seen in my career, and I know it doesn't happen very often. By the way, Chandler Parsons' career hadn't been that long. When a man gives you his word and an organization his word, especially when that organization put in so much effort, and I walked him through this process and was very, very open and willing to work with him, it's just very unethical and disrespectful. Whoo, I don't know if you noticed, but the word I popped up in there, didn't it? Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Now here's Chandler Parsons again. He wasn't ready to be a franchise player. He was scared. He was scared to take the next step in his career. There was no other reason other than that he was comfortable and he has friendships there. How you make a business decision like that is beyond me. How you ignore an owner like Mark who is in your hometown just waiting for a chance to talk to you is beyond me. I don't think he made a mistake. I think he'll be good in L.A. He's got a good team. He's got a great point guard. He's got Blake. But I think he could have been a superstar in Dallas. He could have been the man in Dallas. Never in a million years that I think this was even a possibility. He's not finished, by the way. I'll still be friends with him, but I can't get over the way that he's put our entire franchise in jeopardy. It's normal to get cold feet. It's normal to get second thoughts, but you don't back out of a commitment of this much magnitude this late in the game and just leave us high and dry. Actually, he did. You say you don't do that? Incorrect, sir. That's exactly what happened. I don't know how to break that to you. I think you are pretty intimately clear about that. But in Dallas, they are hurt, Jack. They are hurt. They are hurt. And since they're hurt in Dallas, the focus of the conversation is now moving to DeAndre Jordan's professionalism, right? Now, look, was he afraid to be a franchise player? I have no idea. But let me ask you a question. If DeAndre Jordan woke up and was like, yo, they expect me to be a franchise player, and I know damn well I'm not a franchise player. Like, is that being scared or is that being smart? Because if Dallas's plans for the future hinged on the idea of DeAndre Jordan being their franchise player, they were doomed to begin with. Like, the plan that you had come up with was not a very good plan. Anyway, don't fall for it, folks. Do not fall for it. And I don't know if you're falling for anything right now. I don't know if there's an it that actually exists. But I feel like I need to tell you this in these definitive terms because otherwise you might fall for it. Don't fall for it. And what I'm saying don't fall for it is this. All the questions about whether DeAndre Jordan should have called Mark Cuban, you know who should have called Mark Cuban? DeAndre Jordan's agent. You know why? Because DeAndre Jordan's agent is going to make a lot of money off of this. And one of the things that you get with your money when you get an agent is to make uncomfortable phone calls. Like, I think that people have a misunderstanding that you basically just pay your agent to negotiate your contract. No. The agent negotiates the contract. The agent gets a cut off that contract. And then after the agent gets that cut off that contract, the agent then goes and earns his money. The agent earns his money by managing the relationships. The agent earns his money by keeping you up to speed and having conversations with people that you don't need to be having the conversations yourself with, right? And the agent makes uncomfortable phone calls. That's part of what your agent does. Now, DeAndre Jordan apparently has stopped talking to his agent, whose name is Dan Fegan. He apparently has frozen Dan Fegan out. Now, while we are focused on whether DeAndre Jordan is man enough to call Mark Cuban, what in the hell happened where you're not talking to your agent anymore? Look, I got an agent. I like my agent a lot. I understand not everybody really likes their agent, but I really like my agent a lot. I can't imagine a circumstance where I'm negotiating a contract and I got to freeze my agent out. Like, something would have to happen under that circumstance. So what happened? What happened that would create a situation where DeAndre Jordan would freeze out his agent? However, there would be a representative from that same company in there with him to sign the contract. All right? So while Mark Cuban and Chandler Parsons can talk about DeAndre not talking to Cuban or the lack of professionalism or whatever it is, why are we talking about this? There's a chain of events that I think is very important. All right? Dwight Howard is also represented by Dan Fegan. Dwight Howard signed with the Houston Rockets. Zach Lowe has written this on Grantland.com, that it was widely believed that at the time of that signing, part of getting Dwight to Houston required Daryl Morey to let Chandler Parsons out of his contract early. That happened. Chandler Parsons, who, as you may have gleaned from what I just said, is also represented by Dan Fegan. Chandler Parsons then gets a boatload of cash and winds up going to Dallas. All right. So now Chandler Parsons is in Dallas. Chandler Parsons is represented by Dan Fegan. Who's the guy screaming down on DeAndre Jordan the hardest? The dude that's saying that he's his friend, who also happens to be the dude who is also represented by the agent that DeAndre Jordan isn't speaking to right now, the agent who also happens to be cool with Mark Cuban. What the hell happened here? Like, as funny as it was with the hostage thing that we were joking about and everything else, what exactly happened? Like, you could get into whether or not DeAndre Jordan was man enough to have this conversation or not, whatever it is. My question is, why aren't you talking to your agent? Because your agent should be having that conversation for you. So why are you and your agent not at a place where you could call him any point of that evening and be like, call them and let them know? Like, DeAndre Jordan didn't have to man up. There's an option there of having your representative who makes a lot of money off of you to go have that conversation. His representative did not go have that conversation because he's not having a conversation with his representative who happens to be cool with the owner of the Mavericks, who has a player who was the lead recruiter, who is also represented by the agent, and now is shouting that dude down. The guy who wound up getting to Dallas, it is widely believed because the agent cut a deal that when Dwight Howard went to Houston, that player would then be free. Like, I want you to think about this and just grasp what's going on here. Like, if that widely believed part is true, right, that Fegan gets Dwight Howard to Houston, that gets Chandler Parsons out, okay? That's a three-way trade. You realize that? That's a three-way trade. The Rockets get Dwight. The Mavericks get Chandler Parsons. Fegan gets the increased commission. It's a three-way trade. It's right there. Isn't that a little bit unseemly? Like, isn't that a little bit weird? Oh, by the way, this is the same agent, by the way, who negotiated the under-the-table contract for Joe Smith in Minnesota. Yeah, he was Joe Smith's agent. Yeah. Somebody brought that up to me today. Yeah. So all I'm saying is, you talking about whether DeAndre Jordan is manning up. I feel like you're missing where the real interesting story is.
Bomani.
Just want to make sure I get something straight with you right fast. Last segment, I said that Dan Fegan represented Joe Smith when he signed the under-the-table deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. That is incorrect. He represented Joe Smith after that deal. He did not negotiate that contract. That is a mistake, and not really a small one. So I apologize to all parties who matter, those who are listening, and, of course, the person I made the mistake in referring to. Sorry about that. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Comparing rates to help you save. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today and find out how much Progressive could save you. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. So, a lot of people in Dallas are mad, real mad. I can't imagine how mad Mark Cuban is. Right? When's the next time Mark Cuban's going to be able to trust again? Because I feel like it's going to be a long time. I can't imagine how irate Mark Cuban is, all right? But I tell you who's got more of a right to be irate, and that would be your good friend and mine, Dirk Nowitzki. Bruh, Dirk, how do you feel? Look, Dirk, okay, let me go pull these numbers up. Like, I was about to freestyle this, but no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull these numbers up right now. I need you to understand what Dirk Nowitzki has done with his money as it relates to the Dallas Mavericks, all right? So Dirk Nowitzki in the 2013-2014 season, still a good player, Dirk Nowitzki made $22 million a year. Last year, Dirk Nowitzki made $8 million, and this year he'll make $8.33 million. Have you been seeing the contracts that people are signing? Dirk is out here making $8 million when Omer Asik is out here getting 12. 12. That's what Dirk is getting. Everybody that got mad at Kobe for taking that $24 million a year on the way out, I'd rather be Kobe than Dirk. Because Dirk out here giving money back, and the Mavericks, they're below the salary floor. Yeah. Dirk, what am I? Dirk gave back money so they could have to try to find some place to put all this money because they haven't been able to spend it. Dirk got played. Like, even if they had gotten DeAndre Jordan, even if they had gotten him, how good were they going to be? Like, that's what Dirk gave his money back for. Dirk a better man than me, because I'd be like, look, I need to be involved in every personnel decision that you guys make. You guys let me know what you want to do with my $15 million. Because I just gave y'all $15 million, and I gave y'all $15 million to go spend it on players. And ultimately, you didn't seal the deal. Like, if I'm Dirk, that's what I'm telling Mark Cuban. End of the day, you couldn't close the deal. Yeah. You could say he gave you his word and everything else, Why'd he even want to change his mind, Shark Tank? You're supposed to be Shark Tank. I thought you made deals. I thought you closed deals. You closed the deal with me for $8 million. You couldn't close the deal with him for 20? For 20? Hey, man, take the money. Take the money. Now, a guy like David West, I see is being in a somewhat of a different situation there. Dirk, I ain't taking $15 million less or $14 million less from somebody I already work for when I'm still out here balling. And what have they done with Dirk's money? Who has received Dirk's money? Where has Dirk's money gone? Let's go look at it. Dirk's money just went to a dude coming in off an Achilles tear. That's right. Wes Matthews is getting Dirk's money. Amin Elhassan is going to join us next segment. We've talked to him about this before. There have basically been 3 players in NBA history to come back anything close to good as new after an Achilles tear. 3. The Mavericks just gave a dude like that a max contract. And how were they able to give him a max contract? Because they spending Dirk's money. Right. Like, if I'm Dirk, this is just me. Dirk apparently is a nicer guy than I am, okay? So I'm not saying that Dirk has to feel the way that I feel about this. Because if I'm Dirk, I feel like I got played, right? If I'm Dirk, I feel like Mark Cuban knows me very well, knows some things about me, remember some of the things that I've been through, and size me up as the Mark. That's right. It's like, I'm going to go tell Dirk that we need him to sacrifice this money to get better players. And then I'm never going to get the players. Ha, ha, ha. Because this is where I think Dirk messed up in his calculus. This is a real question here. When's the last time the Mavericks brought in a free agent worth discussing? Like, Dallas is a good place to be rich. Dallas is a place with no state income tax. The Rockets seem to be a bit more of an attractive place than Dallas has. Now, free agency is tricky because it's so rare there's a player worth discussing. You know, there are a lot of teams that you can point to, like the Lakers. Like, you'd be like, the Lakers ain't got a big-time free agent since Shaq, right? Like, you could make that point, but they are, in fact, the Lakers. But the Mavericks have sold Dirk this idea that, don't worry, we're going to go out and get the free agents we need to put a champion around you. Where they at? Where they at? I can tell you more examples of Mark Cuban letting free agents go that were pretty big than bringing in big free agents. Let Steve Nash go. I understood why, but still, let Steve Nash go. Let Tyson Chandler go. But there's Dirk watching him spend his money on Wes Matthews. Somebody in my Twitter mentions today made a good point. He said you need to do this like Tim Duncan did. Like, after they got LaMarcus Aldridge, after they got Kawhi Leonard locked in, after the Spurs made all those moves, then he signed his under-market deal. But no. He wasn't giving that money back until he knew what he was giving that money up to. He's like, yeah, I'll give some of my money to LaMarcus Aldridge. That's fine. Dirk out here paying Chandler Parsons. I don't know if Chandler Parsons has kids, but they're going to private school on Dirk's money. Like, if I was Dirk, every time I saw Chandler Parsons, I'd be like, oh, man, how much did those tennis shoes cost me? Oh, Chandler Parsons, that's a mighty expensive haircut. Glad you're out here putting my money to good use. Hey, Wes Matthews, looks like your ankle's sore. Wonder if you're paying for that ice with my money. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. Look, man, there's no other way to look at that. If I get my money back to pay other players, then you are paying them with my money. I know it's probably against the salary cap, but I'd be like, yo, dog, how about this? How about you give me the money and I pay out? Why you got to be the one to pay out?
Bomani.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest, ESPN analyst and front office insider, and a man who once described UGK as being pleasantly mediocre, even though that right there is one of the greatest rap songs of all time. We are talking to Amin Elhassan. Amin, what's going on?
As far as I'm concerned, I listened to that song for the Outkast verses. I listened to that song for the blatant Juicy J Project Pat production. And then those guys kind of just hopped on the track. That's to me, at least.
It's Juicy J and DJ Paul proving that once again you don't actually know what you're talking about.
It was a Project Pat track. It was a Project Pat track.
Yeah, originally it was, but that's a Juicy J DJ Paul production. That ain't what you said. Yeah. You're talking to me now, Hassan. Hey, man, have you ever heard of a situation where a player freezes out his agent but still negotiates the deal with the same company like it's going on with DeAndre Jordan?
Yes. I think that's what happened with Peter Turkoglu when he changed his mind. He froze his agent out as well. He did the deal with Toronto behind his agent's back. And, that all started with him having cold feet, not the day before signing, but the day of the press conference. That's right. He was actually in Portland in the hotel room when he changed his mind. So a little more egregious, I would say, than what DeAndre Jordan did, but I think the difference is DeAndre Jordan is the first max player to ever do this. Everyone else has kind of been lesser money, so to speak.
They gave Turkoglu so much money when he did that, though. Let us not forget.
Hey, man, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
All right, we're talking to Amin Elhassan. I was curious about this, though, the ramifications after the fact. I've had people ask the questions about how this would reflect on the agents involved in this, how this would reflect on the front offices. What do you think about that?
Oh, I mean, it's a really tangled web, right? Because part of it is, as an agent, if your client does this, you can't really go on representing them, right? Because that makes you look bad to all the other teams. When you have your other clients and you say, hey, we got a deal. So, well, how do I know? How do I know that I can trust you and you won't do something like what happened? On the other hand, there are a lot of allegations that the whole reason DeAndre Jordan was moving in the direction of Dallas to begin with was because of, I guess you could say, malfeasance or, manipulation, whatever you want to call it. But DJ was led astray, so to speak, by his agent, and pushed towards Dallas much in the same way that you might see a high school coach push a prospect towards a particular college because he's got a kickback going on and not because that's the best situation for him. So it's a lot more complicated than just, he did it without his agent's permission or whatever. There's a lot going on in this situation.
Well, Mark Cuban and Dan Fegan are buddies. At least it appears to be the case. Now, these are all relationship businesses, and agents are going to make relationships with people on teams no matter what because they're going to have interactions back and forth over this time. But Fegan's relationship with Cuban has come into question here. Like, how does this work, though? When you're an agent, you're a front office guy, and then you have to figure out how to balance or manage the relationship that you have with the agent and vice versa.
Well, at the end of the day, it is symbiotic in some sense. They're not lockstep, but at the end of the day, as a front office guy, I want talent. As an agent, I want my talent to get paid. And if you have a good relationship with a certain agent, then it usually works out that way. It's like, well, you give me your guys, and I'll take care of them. And that's how it happens. You get these guys getting funneled towards places, and some guys get taken care of. They probably more than they were worth, and some guys get taken care of probably less than what they were, but it all averages out, so to speak. And by the way, this doesn't just happen in basketball or in sports. I mean, it happens in our business, too. There are agents, and, particularly the bigger agents, you'll have some clients that have big names, and they'll get big deals, and then you kind of, well, if you want so-and-so, you got to take so-and-so with them, too. And so that kind of happens all the time, and this is in a unique situation, I would say, not in the least.
All right, talk to Amin Elhassan of ESPN. So looking at this, now DeAndre Jordan is going back to the Clippers. The Mavericks look like they're not going to be very good, but how not very good are the Mavericks going to be?
I would go with very bad. That's how not very good they're going to be. They're going to be very bad, but part of it is, by design, Mark Cuban, the comments he got fined for were for naming names, basically saying DJ and Wes are going to be here and everything's going to be awesome, and he was beating his chest. And but he said, had we not got them, we would probably seriously consider tanking. He didn't use that exact word, but that's basically what he insinuated by saying that in most years there's a race to the bottom between 6 to 8 teams. Well, a lot of those teams now are all trying to do better for themselves. So if there were ever a year to tank, this is the one because you've got a great chance to get all the way to the bottom with very little resistance other than, of course, Philadelphia, because they're always there. So, I know he said it, he kind of said it as a hypothetical, but at this point, it feels like a pretty good plan. I mean, it's better than throwing your money at scrubs, pretty much, because that's all that's left in the market.
How you look Dirk Nowitzki in the face and say, hey, man, appreciate that give back, but, we're going to tank this out.
Man, you got to, I don't know. I don't know if it's a check that you hand them at the end of the year. I don't know if the next deal you give them is ridiculously overpaid, but, you got to take care of them one way or another. And at the end of the day, as with everything, you never promise a championship. You promise that you're going to do everything in your power to bring a championship. So some of those things, if they had paid him $18, $20 million, then they wouldn't even be in the position to be heartbroken by DeAndre Jordan or anyone else for that matter. So in that sense, he took the discount to give them the opportunity to get more talent, not necessarily to guarantee they'd have more talent.
All right, last question for me and Elhassan. While everybody was hanging out at DeAndre Jordan's mama's house, what do you think the Spades teams were?
Oh, you know what I was thinking? It had to be DJ and Chris, right? Because Chris has to prove, I have no problem with you, man. It's cool. We're just joking. Ha, ha, ha. I can be a nice guy. And, when DJ would mess up the books or whatever, Chris would just like, oh, you'll get it next time. But here's the funny thing about this whole thing. It really is like a relationship, right? Like you break up and then you come back begging on your hands and knees, look, I was sorry, I didn't know that bothered you. I'll change, I'll be better, and whatever. And then usually for the next 2 weeks, you do change and you do better, and then you begin to revert back to the slappy that you were. You know, you don't lift the seat up anymore, and you leave your underwear on the floor. And so, in that sense, I wonder what's going to happen. What's the over/under before Chris Paul becomes a jerk again towards DeAndre? Are we saying Thanksgiving, Christmas? How long?
That's a good question. It also begs one more question. Did Steve Ballmer play spades? Did he already know how to play spades,
No.
or did they try to teach him?
I've seen him dance. There's no way he knows how to play spades.
All right, Amin Elhassan, ESPN's NBA front office insider. My man, greatly appreciate it.
Thanks.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
And I guess a more somber note, rest in peace to Ken Stabler, the former quarterback of the Raiders and of the Houston Oilers. That gets forgotten. And the Saints. I didn't know that until this very moment. Stabler passed away today. He was at age 69. And so if you're younger and you're listening to this, it's kind of an interesting thing here, which is you don't have any recollection of the Raiders as the Raiders. Like, I don't really have a recollection of it. Like, Kenny Stabler was gone from the Raiders before I played, but even continuing really into the 1990s, the Raiders still had kind of the renegade image. And the NFL is a decidedly non-renegade league, and the Raiders were the renegade franchise. Like, the league is so much of a better place when the Raiders are good. Because at that time, it was Al Davis, it's the uniforms, it's the idea, the mascot is the pirate. They're in Oakland. And then it's the dudes who actually play for the team, right? Like, it was an all-encompassing brand and personality that persevered even as they moved to Los Angeles, because I think Al got a hold pretty quick once he got there, or at the very least walked around the neighborhood the stadium was in and was like, yo, this place is kind of hardcore, right? But that was the Raiders. And so, like, even at this time in the NBA, or even in the NFL, rather, or I can take it far in the NFL, like, think about your renegade college teams. They almost always had, like, some babyface character. No matter what. They always had some guy that you could look at and be like, okay, that's the good guy. That's the guy that we can say is, doing things the right way. For example, the 2008 Florida Gators, the national championship team, especially in retrospect, that's a renegade team in a lot of ways, right? But they had Tim Tebow. Like, you can always make Tim Tebow the face of that team if you want to and act like Aaron Hernandez never existed. Like, you can do that. Percy Harvin, who's that? Had Tim Tebow. Percy Harvin didn't even play in the SEC championship game that year. Like, that's what you can do. The Raiders weren't quite like that, and part of the reason that the Raiders weren't quite like that is Kenny Stabler was their quarterback. Like, he's the absolute perfect quarterback in terms of everything you could think about for that franchise, for that team and what they wanted to do. Because what the Raiders were, like, I read a very interesting book. It's called, It's Okay, It's Only a Bruise by Robert Huizenga, who's the team doctor for the Raiders. And the subject of the book itself is not particularly germane to this discussion, but you got a lot of the feeling of kind of just the personality that has always surrounded the Raiders and the way that Al Davis saw things and the stories about guys like Matt Millen and Howie Long and all these other guys just being on the team. And everything we know about this corporate NFL just wasn't the Raiders. And of all the quarterbacks that you think about in NFL history, whose names, like, stand out to you, that you think about and that you remember, Ken Stabler is, like, the only one that's not especially corporate, but never really made much of an attempt to be corporate. Like, you could make an argument, of course, Michael Vick, not exactly that corporate. The dogs. But it wasn't because he wasn't trying. Like, there's that stretch where he had the braids and everything else. But, after the law got him, he came out with that fresh season. He's saying all the right things and everything else. Dude, Ken Stabler was the snake. My most, the Ken Stabler memory I have the most of him throwing the ball, it's not him throwing the ball overhand. It's him throwing the ball underhand, pretending to fumble in San Diego, and the ball rolls into the end zone because Dave Casper swats it about 6 or 7 times. And you got John Madden running on the field acting like he can't tell what in the world was going on there. Like, that was the Raiders. Like, that's what it was. That's something the league misses whenever they're not good. Whenever they're not good. Because whenever they're not good, you finally have an anti-hero to root for. Like, the Patriots should be our NFL anti-hero to root for. Like, if you're the guy that roots for the bad guy in the movies, or just kind of sometimes likes to be contrarian and root against the team that all the straight-laced people say they root for the team the straight-laced people say they hate, like, you always had the Raiders. The NFL just doesn't really have that. It's not really built to have that. It could have that because there is a renegade franchise in the NFL right now. Problem is that franchise wears red, white, and blue and calls themselves the Patriots, so it's a little bit counterintuitive to think of them as such. Like, even though, they got their babyface Tom Brady at the front, but everything about the Patriots, when you think about it, man, they're the Raiders. They just wrap it up in American flag-inspired regalia. But they're the Raiders. But if the Raiders get back, man, they can't help but be the bad guy team. They just cannot help it. Plus, right now, the way the things the Raiders are going to, get it going, if they do get good, it'll have to be the bad guy team because they'll have to be like that college team that gets all the disciplinary risks that other people won't take because they're like, we hurry up and get good before somebody commits a felony, we'll be okay. But you think about those guys on those old Raiders teams like Stabler, Fred Biletnikoff, Gene Upshaw, Art Shell. Like, you put pictures of those guys and the image surrounding that team next to an NFL team now, and it's something that you can barely recognize. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily good or bad, but I am saying it's hard to ignore that team and that era of football in particular, but that era of football in general, but that team in particular, like, those dudes were like mad regular. And I mean that in a good way. Or not even, at the very least, not in a bad way. Just like dudes. They just happen to play football. And a lot of them seem to be kind of sort of insane. Like, just a little bit. You start running through the names of some of those Raiders teams and you get to, like, John Matuzak and stuff like that. They were just a little bit different. They were wrapped up just a wee bit different. But I'd say that Raiders team, those Raiders teams, other than maybe like for teams that I didn't grow up with, it's like everybody that loved those Raiders teams loved a different player. And there was like a zillion of them. But it's all like they just all loved a different member of the Raiders. Every single one. Like, think about that. All those guys that if you have any passing acquaintance with football, that you could just name who played for those Raiders teams. Because it was all personality. And they were the team that had the quarterback that actually had a real live personality. Really, go through them. Name all our great quarterbacks of all time. Name all our good quarterbacks of all time. Name every quarterback you got. How many of them were any fun? Yeah. Kind of takes a while before you can think of one that was really fun. Like, unless he coached your favorite team or something like that. The Raiders had one that was fun. Like, the Raiders had one that was decidedly fun. And something I also think is interesting about Stabler, like, as you remember him, regardless of how you felt about Alabama football and the larger political climate of the 1960s, Alabama football, at least nationally speaking, is like a fairly populist brand, right? Populist, Populist, fairly populist brand. Now, within the state of Alabama, the folks at Auburn, shall we say, are a little bit more grounded. I think would probably be the charitable way to put that. So they would not agree with this idea that Alabama is a populist brand. But when people think about Alabama football, they think like Bear Bryant, they think folksy stuff. Like, right or wrong, that's just the kind of the impression that you got. And Stabler is like your folksy quarterback, except he's like the folksy quarterback of a motorcycle gang. And I don't say that about the Raiders necessarily because I think they ride around on motorcycles and behave like a gang. I'm just saying, look at their clothes. Like, look at them. Like, that's what we're doing here. You got a dude on your helmet with an eye patch. That's them. And that was their quarterback. So we definitely say rest in peace to Ken Stabler. I want to read you a little bit of this. I thought his family put out a statement about how he spent his last moments, and I think it kind of fills in what I'm talking about. And this is your folksy populist quarterback, which you just don't have very much. Like, they're listing what he did in his last hours, and they're saying that he listened to some of his favorite songs, like Sweet Home Alabama, and he named a Van Morrison song. I don't know. Like, I spent 4 figures taking a trip to go see Van Morrison last month, and I was like, I don't know the name of that song. Right, that's what it was. That's what it turned out to be. The quarterback that you imagine smoking a cigarette, like, not on the sideline necessarily, but in between plays if you would let him. Like, you tell me this right now. If someone were to tell you that there was a story about Ken Stabler walking out to the huddle with a cigarette because he had just lit it and he didn't expect there to be a fumble, and him putting the cigarette on his helmet in the huddle, like, hey, don't worry, nobody will get burned. You can't tell me you would be surprised. You cannot tell me that you would be surprised. And there's something to be said about football players just being fun, athletes just being fun. Like, I don't know if a quarterback could be that much fun now, like at this time, with everything everybody wants a quarterback to be. Could you be just fun like the Raiders were and like this dude was? I sure as hell hope so.
Bomani.
This morning at Wimbledon, Serena Williams played Maria Sharapova. I realized that match was going on, and I didn't really bother turning on my television because, wow, how predictable was that outcome? In a way, I almost feel bad for Maria Sharapova when it comes down to her back and forths with Serena Williams. We tried hard to make this a rivalry, and we have to admit, very early on, there was legitimate reason to think that it could be a rivalry. Sharapova beat Serena in the Wimbledon final in 2004, and then what was it, the WTA Championships final in 2005? She beat Serena also. She hasn't beaten her since. We still kind of pretend like this is a rivalry. Now, of course, you know, we had that little situation where Maria Sharapova came out there and called Serena Williams a homewrecker. That was something. But I have decided, actually, that Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova do, in fact, have a rivalry. They do. Sure, it's been pretty lopsided, but, I mean, you think about it. There's all kinds of rivalries that are very similar to the one that Maria Sharapova has with Serena Williams. There are. You know what rivalry reminds me of the most? I can hear it now. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's what this Serena and Sharapova thing is. Serena is the Globetrotters. Sharapova, the lowly Washington Generals. Like, it's only a matter of time before Serena acts like she's going to go for a serve, and then the ball is actually going to be made of confetti. And it's just going to go poof right in Maria Sharapova's face. I mean, how many times in a row you got to lose? Like, everybody who thinks that, like, winning is simply a matter of want to, I guarantee you, don't nobody want to win anything like Maria Sharapova wants to win against Serena Williams. Nobody. And it just, there we go. Serena just hit Maria in the face with a tennis ball that was actually connected to a string. Oh, boy, it's always funny when she does that one. Oh, no, not the bucket of water. Oh, no, not the bucket of water on Maria. She's beautiful. Come on now. I'm just asking. Go ahead, cut that down. I can't imagine how miserable it is to continue to lose to the same person like that over and over and over and over and over again. And the only reason that we really take note of the fact that it goes like this is that at one time people tried to make this a rivalry because they needed to find a rival for Serena Williams, and this is the closest person they could find. All that's gotten Maria Sharapova is beaten for 10 years in a row. 10 years in a row. Like, as far as rivalries go, if we were to compare this to college football, I think the most similar one that we could come up with would be Bedlam. That's Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma currently leads the Bedlam series 84-18-7. 84-18-7. Maria Sharapova ain't even doing that. She ain't even doing that. Like, that's back when Barry Switzer was out there with one of the best teams that, shall we say, a college football coach could creatively acquire. And they were playing against Oklahoma State. And we ain't talking about this Oklahoma State with a billionaire just throwing all this money out there. Nah, we just talking about Oklahoma State being Oklahoma State. Just over there, minding their own business, waiting for Oklahoma to come and beat the dog out of them. Yeah, that's what this Serena and Sharapova thing is kind of like. By the way, not sure if you guys have noticed, but Serena Williams is one match away from winning 3 of the 4 Grand Slams at an age at which very, very rarely is anyone still playing this high level of tennis. Everybody, you still have the chance to get on board and acknowledge the greatness of this truly American story. You can go ahead and do that. Like, you don't have to sit around and try to make up rivalries. You don't have to sit around and hope that somebody's going to mess around and be better than her. You don't have to do any of those things. All you have to do is be honest with yourself and acknowledge that Serena Williams is one of the greatest athletes that we have ever seen. Now, I imagine that as I say that, a lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, I do acknowledge that she's one of the greatest athletes that I've ever seen. Okay, well, now's the time for you to start acting like it. Okay? Acting like it. You can go ahead and do that. Let me give you something to consider here, right? Because I know a lot of people, they say that they find Serena Williams to be a bit arrogant, which I don't think is terribly wrong, but I don't have great expectations of humility from exceptional people. Like, when people get to be a certain level of good at stuff, they ain't but so much humble that you're going to get. Like, the humble that you're talking about would probably impede their path to success. Plus, we all seen Serena Williams' daddy. It's a wonder, actually, that she is as humble as she is. You have to acknowledge that at some point. But anyway, you know who did the most arrogant thing I can think of this week? Did you hear what Phil Mickelson said when people tried to ask him some questions about, his little situation? You know, the one where he always seems to be getting caught up with these white-collar thugs? Did you see what Phil Mickelson said there? Phil Mickelson said that he was so comfortable with who he was that he wasn't going to answer any of those questions. Think about that for a second. I'm so comfortable with who I am that I'm not going to answer your questions. Direct quote. I just want to make sure you understand that I'm comfortable enough with who I am as a person that I don't feel like I need to comment. Homie, the feds keep showing up at your door, and you talk about how comfortable you are as a person? Yo, man, people act like Phil Mickelson is the people's champ. Like, I don't think they're listening to this right now that would dare feel so comfortable to say something like that. That's your people's champ, and Serena Williams is the arrogant one, right? Right? Nah, man, I'm trying to help you guys out. This is greatness before us. It's right here. And Maria Sharapova, who, by the way, she's won all the Grands. She's got 5 major championships. Like, she's not Serena Williams. She's not Venus Williams, to be perfectly honest. But at the same time, she's still really good. Right? I think we can all agree upon that. She's still really good. She's lost to Serena Williams 10 years straight. Serena beat her at Wimbledon. What was it? 6-love, 6-1, or was it 6-1, 6-2? Either way it goes, when Serena Williams did the crit walk at Wimbledon at the Olympics, never forget that there was somebody out there who lost that match where she did the crit walk. And that somebody was Maria Sharapova. She crit walked on her at Wimbledon. I can't even lie. I might have to call her a home record too, just because I'm mad. Just irate, furious.
Bomani.
Guys, this free agent thing somehow has managed to get fascinating based on what's going on with DeAndre Jordan, which none of us expected. And, Chandler Parsons is all mad, and we're going to have Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports on next segment to talk about these things. But have you heard who the Kings are still interested in signing? Now, I need you guys to remember, okay? The Kings have signed Rajon Rondo. The Kings have DeMarcus Cousins. The Kings are coached by George Karl. Vlade Divac was on with Jim Rome today, and he said the relationship with George Karl and DeMarcus Cousins right now is not pretty. So, if you were in charge of a team like that, who would you try to sign? Who would you want to be the guy on your team in a situation like that? If you're saying to yourself, Josh Smith, ding, 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 that's right. Jason Jones of the Sacramento Bee. With players able to sign contracts, the Kings have a, quote, very strong interest in free agent forward Josh Smith. Please make this happen. Like, you've got to make this happen. For the rest of us, you have to make this happen. See, I feel like the Kings are in a really awkward situation right now. And here, not really awkward, but it's a bit of an unfortunate situation, a bit of an ironic situation. The Kings have put together a team that will be so popular with people who are fans of the NBA, but aren't actually fans of the Kings. I mean, if you're a fan of the Kings, then I'm telling you about the pending disaster, the possibility that you could have Josh Smith, DeMarcus Cousins, Rajon Rondo on the same starting five with George Karl as the coach. Like, I could tell you that, right? And you're like, wow, that's going to be a disaster. Ha, ha, ha. I'd love to watch it on the League Pass. That's what we're saying because we don't root for the team. Now, those of you guys that have, some variety of interest, then I feel bad for you. I truly do. Because this could be a real bad season for you. But for the rest of us, what do I need to do to get Josh Smith on the team? Who do I need to call to do whatever is necessary to help facilitate this situation? Please let me know. Because I can't imagine a team that I would want to watch more that I didn't actually care about than the team that we're talking about putting together there. Like, that's how crazy the NBA is right now. I said, look, go look at the Western Conference and just look at all the teams in the Western Conference. Every single one of them next year will be interesting. They might not be interesting for long, but I can tell you why every team in the West next year is going to be interesting. You ready? The Warriors. Duh. The Rockets. Duh. The Clippers. Well, this stuff's happened. They'll be interesting. The Trailblazers. Well, maybe not so much. Okay, maybe they won't be interesting. The Grizzlies, they grind. The Spurs, they're a little boring, yet somehow interesting at the same time. Ironic, I understand, but, we'll try. The Mavericks, man, everybody over there is going to be so salty. I can't wait for shots of angry Mark Cuban in the crowd after the way he started to act. The Pelicans have Anthony Davis. That is interesting. The Thunder have Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. They are interesting. The Suns are really fun to watch if you ever get around to doing it. The Jazz messed around and got good last year when nobody was looking. The Nuggets, okay, maybe not so interesting. The Lakers, every game Kobe plays will be interesting because he's still getting up those shots. The Timberwolves are going to have the last two number one picks, and Sacramento could be a dumpster fire. Hey, gotta say, the NBA, when they did that silly little lockout, one of the things they wanted to do was give more franchises a chance at winning a championship and make this more like the NFL, where you just kind of had a broader range of interest in the league and not having interest just being concentrated in 5 teams. I'll be damned. I don't think that's a great strategy for, nationwide success. I don't think that. I don't think that's a great strategy for nationwide success. However, for those of us who really, really like the NBA, I've got to say, there's something to be said for the fact that damn near the entire Western Conference is interesting. It would be kind of helpful if some of the Eastern Conference were a little bit more interesting, but whatever. We'll work with what we got right now. And what we got right now is the chance that Josh Smith could be on a team that is coached by George Karl. Like, that's before we get to all the other stuff, right? Like, let's just stop right there. George Karl will be asked to coach Josh Smith, running an offense where he notoriously gives his players lots of freedom. Right. That could happen. With Rondo as the point guard, who notoriously takes all the freedom away that the coach may have given. With DeMarcus Cousins at center, who maybe Dan Fegan, the reason he wasn't in there with DeAndre Jordan is he was too busy trying to cook up a way to get DeMarcus Cousins free. Because he might lose his mind. Up in here. And I say that he might lose his mind not because he's DeMarcus Cousins. I say that because I would lose my mind. Up in there.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest. He covers the NBA for Yahoo Sports, and he is the best basketball writer in the business. His name is Adrian Wojnarowski. Adrian, what's going on?
Bomani, good to be with you.
Hey, man, thanks for coming on tonight. The Mavericks, the Clippers, DeAndre Jordan. What was your read on that situation?
Well, from a basketball perspective, there were a lot of people in the league, I don't know if confused is the word, but, disbelieving of why he'd leave the Clippers for a pretty flawed Dallas roster with no guards. Chandler Parsons is a max player and salary only, and certainly an aging Dirk Nowitzki. To leave that Clipper team that is primed to, keep winning at a high level here in L.A., now, it was going home for him, and that made sense, and he did talk about wanting to play a more prominent role. But I think in the end, for him, this is the best thing for his career. He's going to, whatever his relationship is with Chris Paul, it hasn't been great, but it doesn't have to be great. Every time he comes off a screen, every time he comes around in a pick and roll, there's the ball up at the rim. He's going to catch it and dunk it. And he can love Raymond Felton in Dallas and go to dinner with him every night. That's not how it's going to go there with him. So I think in the end, this is I'm sure he'll be happiest. I don't think that would have worked out great in Dallas. I just don't think it's I'm not sure it was even going to be a playoff game.
Well, what kind of relationship can he possibly have now with Dan Fegan, his agent, at least right now his agent?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't talked to DeAndre Jordan about it. Listen, players make decisions. He's not a 22-year-old kid. He's been in the league. He's on his second contract. Guys, in the end, they tend to go where they want to go. I mean, that's always been my experience. Listen, it's a league of relationships among, you look around at trades that get done. Very often it's GMs who have really good relationships. They talk more. They do more deals together. They help each other. That's true with agents and teams. That's true with coaches and assistant coaches and who gets hired. It's a league of relationships. I think it's a little bit overstated. In the end, he's old enough to make a decision for himself. Now, he went back on that decision, certainly, but that's kind of what the moratorium lends itself to that happening. It gives you time to think about it. It's not ideal, especially when it's a max player and a team has such a big slot to have to fill. They can't do it in Dallas now. They're going to have to. There's no regrouping from that. But I don't know. I'd be surprised if his relationship with Dan is going to change much. But I haven't talked to him about it.
All right, talking to Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports. And you had tweeted yesterday that the Clippers were running 4 quarters on DeAndre Jordan at his house. Could you remember a situation like that where a team was like, don't let him leave here without signing this paperwork?
Well, it was like a college recruiting. I was texting with one GM, and I was like, this is like how it had to, in the old Southwest Conference, like somebody's trying to keep Switzer, at bay while the Texas coaches are inside. That's what it reeked of. But the Clippers, here's the thing, once the Clippers got there, I was told last night, they didn't have to sell him. He was ready to come back. And that, over the last 2 or 3 days before they came down, his mind was moving toward that. He was talking with Doc Rivers. He was talking with his teammates. Then when they all got there, and he and Chris Paul talked a little bit, and J.J. Redick and Blake Griffin was there the night before, and they talked. By the time they came in, it was like I wrote, I was told they talked for like 20, 25 minutes, and then they started playing cards, and and they just hung out till he could sign the contract at midnight Eastern, and that's what happened. But it was unique. It was pretty good. It was made for the internet, that's for sure. I wish they all played out like that. That was the stuff was really clicking last night.
All right, Dr. Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports. Switching gears just a little bit, were you surprised to see LeBron James sign his contract before Tristan Thompson got his?
No. Tristan Thompson's going to get, and people don't understand, he's represented by LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, and I reported during the season he had turned down early in the year. Now, he had a really good season for the Cavs. He turned down a 4-year, $53 million. I don't have the number in front of me. I think it was it was $13 million a year, whatever that math is. But listen, that's part of the tax of having LeBron there. I mean, you're going to pay a tax on having him there, and that means his guys are going to get paid. And listen, Rich Paul's not the only agent in the league who's got, if he has a star player in a place, that's going to be able to stock it with some other guys. And it's not like he's stocking it with him. He's been there. They drafted him 4th overall, and so it's just how business is done. And he was a good player for them. Now, whether he gets a max deal or not, for an offensive rebounder, that's a lot of money for an offensive rebounder. And what's interesting is he's a restricted free agent. Once people knew that he had turned down $13 million, teams are going to go after a restricted free agent that they feel like the team might not match. Portland took a run today at, Enes Kanter, and I think Oklahoma City has to match it, and they will. But Portland had nothing to lose. They had nothing else to do with their space. 3 days, they take a shot at it. I don't think any teams would do that with him in Cleveland because they know Cleveland's going to match it. But I'm sure that deal will get done at a really high number. And LeBron. Here's the other thing: LeBron's not going anywhere. I guess he could threaten it, but we all know he's not leaving again. He's not leaving. So I don't know how much leverage he has on it. I think he certainly has significant leverage, but the idea that, hey, you're going to give Tristan Thompson this max deal or something close to a max deal, or come on, he's not going anywhere.
All right, talking to Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports. You mentioned Enes Kanter getting the extension offer from Portland. You say Oklahoma City will probably match. What do you say to the idea that it seems interesting that they would match this for Enes Kanter, but when that was the question with James Harden coming around, they decided to trade him instead?
Well, it was different. It was a different time in the NBA. It was the salary cap was different. Now with a higher ceiling, and with them, let's be honest, they're going into Kevin Durant. They have to make, for no other reason. When Sam Presti traded for Kanter, he knew this was very possible, and he got rid of some contracts around the draft to put themselves in position to be able to match a big offer sheet for him. But they have to do it going forward. They don't know whether they're going to keep Durant Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka's coming up as a free agent, and they've got to go all in this year. They need Cantor. And with the salary cap going up, it's easier to do. Now, looking back, of course they should have maxed out Harden. Now, at that time, though, with the cap, before this new TV money, if you had 3 stars, you couldn't pay anybody else. And it's different now. Now you can. And that was also an owner at the time who really didn't want to pay luxury tax. He's doing it now. He'll always regret the way that Harden thing went. You know, Sam Presti's a GM who's done really everything right. There's very few who have. Everybody has some misses. Everybody does. And he's had he's had some tremendous drafts and trades. The Harden one, obviously, looking back, they didn't get the value they should have. But if you're going to grade him as a GM, he's been one of the elite in the league, and I think Cantor will get matched here.
All right, last question for Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports. We saw this offseason that players were really drawn to winning situations where it seems like the Lakers and the Knicks, if you thought the market was going to get guys, that didn't seem to do it. Are those teams now going to be stuck in this new landscape having to rebuild, the old-fashioned way?
There's no question. The days of New York, L.A., getting players just because of geography is over. Players are too smart. They're too aware. Their agents are very aware of who runs good organizations. And players like LaMarcus Aldridge or, Greg Monroe is a perfect example. Like, it wasn't like the Knicks and Lakers finished second and third. Portland finished second for Greg Monroe. And I think the fact that Milwaukee was in the East, you can get 40 wins to get in the playoffs in the East. You can win 47 games in the West and Portland and miss the playoffs or be the 8th seed. And so he went with a team where they'll be in the playoffs next year. They got a great young core in Milwaukee. But guys can get endorsements wherever they are. They can be seen. You're on TV. Everybody can watch on their phone every night. And so, we all grew up in a time when if you wanted to be seen, you played for the Sixers or the Celtics or the Lakers, and they played Sunday afternoon at 1. Well, that's gone. And so all things being equal, New York and L.A. are more desirable, but they're not equal. They're not right now. They're both organizations that have have issues with how, their infrastructure, the talent. The Lakers have 2 of their next 3 picks are owed to other teams. It's hard, and players know that. And so you've got to get good players and start building an infrastructure before you can get the great one. You can't just go out and sign a great player when there's nothing around them, because guys know they can't do it alone. There's 1 or 2 guys in this league who can do it alone, maybe really 1, and everybody else knows they need help.
All right, Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports, the best basketball writer in the business. My man, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, anytime, man. Talk to you soon.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Weeknights from 9 to 11 Eastern or on demand at ESPNradio.com.